My spouse, 35-year-old male, has been experiencing behavior that has only become increasingly concerning. In the past 2 months now, he has been talking about things that he claims are happening, but he's never mentioned before. As some background info, when his behavior first started getting concerning, I managed to convince him to go to the hospital to get checked out for his mental health. He wasn't even seen by a doctor, and he was told he just needs to take a certain medicine to help him sleep. The issue is he also smokes Zaza, so this medicine does not mix well with that. He won't quit smoking. We also have 2 very young kids. Back to the weird recent behavior, he claims he had an old email with an inheritance that got hacked and he needs access to it. I tried helping him get on it, but he hasn't used it in literally the 12 years we've been together. I only knew of its existence previously when I helped him switch his Facebook login, and that was an email attached. Another example is that he believes everyone is talking about him to me and everyone else. I mean, literally everyone else. He thinks there's some sort of big thing planned to hurt him or do something horrible to him soon, and that we're all in on it. On a few other separate occasions, he's asked about a show that we're on and asked how much money I'm being paid to keep a secret. He also thinks I'm having secret phone calls and that I've apparently left the room to accept these calls, which then results in me coming back crying about something I've apparently discussed on the phone. Whenever I try to explain to him that none of this is happening, he fights back saying that I'm just lying to him and to tell him the truth, that I need to tell him the truth or something bad is going to happen. It's gotten so bad he ended up getting fired from his job because he was barely showing up. He kept going to the police station to make a report instead of going to work. After he got fired, there was some sort of tense situation where they ended up calling a wellness check for him because they were afraid he's going to come back and hurt someone. The cops showed up while I was also home, and he said he wouldn't hurt someone. He only acts in defense. In the recent weeks, he's gone from screaming at me, demanding answers, to just not talking to me at all. At this point, I'd rather he just not interact with me. The reason I'm writing this is because of what happened today. It was a nice day out, and I asked if he would come with me for a walk with our kids, to which he agreed. He barely spoke a word to me, or the kids on this walk, and when we came across a playground, I asked if we should take the kids there for a few minutes of play. He then got upset at me for suggesting it and said, I always control everything, and I'm the queen of the decisions. I didn't even tell him we were doing that, I just asked. When I mentioned this, he just said, do whatever you want, like always, so I figured why not. So I played with the kids at the playground and he did his own thing. Someone left a couple of various balls there and he was throwing them around. He then picked up the football and threw it in my direction. It flew past me a couple of feet from me. I asked why he did that and he said, why are you upset? It didn't hit you. To which I responded, well, what if it did? He then said, if I wanted it to hit you in the head, I would have thrown it that way. Then he started on a rant about how he's going through the same thing with everyone lying to him. After which he sat down in the corner of the park and was doing literally nothing. I was getting upset, so I packed up the kids and started walking to leave the park. I said to him, we're going home, and started walking away. Apparently, he tried to yell out to us, but ended up taking a different way home than we did. He told me this when he met me on the street when we were almost home, saying that next time I want to be an idiot and walk away, maybe stop and listen for him calling out. I didn't hear him, but honestly, he could have easily caught up to us. I was getting more and more upset and said, I wanted to go for a drive to get coffee, and he said fine. I said I wanted to take the kids, and he asked why. Then I said fine, you stay home with them, and he said no. They can go with you and started putting them in the car. I got in the car and he got in the passenger seat, to which I asked him if he's coming with. He said yes and to drive. I told him I didn't want him coming with because he's being mean, and he said he could be a lot meaner. As I started driving away, he kept going off on the usual BS he's been talking about lately, and I told him I don't want to hear it. He started screaming at me to keep driving and shut the frick up. I stopped the car and told him to get out, and he made a motion like he was going to punch me, but punched his hand in front of my face. At this point, I started crying and yelling at him to get out, and he yelled back, no, just drive. I then said I should just drive him to the police station for that, and he said he would choke me unconscious before we even got there. I was crying even more at this point and said, I don't want to be with him anymore, and I want him out. He said no. He continued to be a weenie for the rest of the car ride, where I pleaded with him to not treat me this way, especially in front of our children. It's not fair to them or to me. He said to not bring them into this. I said, how couldn't I? They are literally in the car. Anyway, after I drove us home, he asked how long I've been waiting to break up with him and who I'm replacing him with. I told him I haven't been and there's no one else, which of course he doesn't believe. When he got inside, he even taunted me saying, I should take you to the police station in a girly voice. He's outside smoking and I'm inside with the kids writing this. Of course, I'm shook up currently, but I don't know what to do. We only have the one vehicle, which is in both our names. The place we rent is actually my mom's, so we don't have a lease. But we both have our addresses attached to this place on our licenses. He wasn't always like this. Literally only the past couple of months, his behavior has been this bad. I miss the person he used to be. I miss that he would spend time with me, with the kids. But he spends all his time by himself now. I don't know if he's going through some sort of manic episode or what's triggering this change in behavior, but I really don't know what to do. Is there something different I can do to help him? Every time he talks to me about whatever situation, he doesn't accept any answer I say, and also won't accept if I say nothing. To add, I just wanted to update and let you all know we are safe. I'm sorry for not saying anything sooner. I'm a bit overwhelmed with how popular this post got, and we'll give an actual update later. Thank you for the advice and comments as well. I will mention a couple of things. We are not in the United States. Where we are, marijuana is legal, so my spouse does get it from government-run dispensaries. I don't think there's a chance his stuff gets laced aside from the fact he mixes cigarettes with it. A lot of people mention drugs. There is just no way. He doesn't go anywhere random. He doesn't talk to people outside of our household, aside from the few times he would go to the police station. I have his location on his phone, so I can see where he goes when he leaves. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Get out tonight. You need your kids out of this situation as soon as possible. You need to get out of there as soon as possible. He clearly is having a psychotic episode. That may or may not be a solvable problem, but him hurting you is not. You cannot solve this problem while living with him. You will be too busy trying to survive him. Focus on getting out as soon as possible. You can start somewhere short-term like a hotel, but you also need to be thinking long-term. Barring a hotel, you should reach out to a domestic violence shelter. I know it's not ideal, but they are not so bad and they are safe. Think about how dangerous a man in his right mind can be, let alone one who thinks there is a society-wide conspiracy against him. Comment 2. My niece last month had a mental break that sounds like this. Marijuana-induced psychosis. It comes with a lot of paranoia. We checked her into a psych ward for evaluation, and they began antipsychotics. She is on her third antipsychotic now, as the first 2 did not work. And she is now living in a home with support staff and a therapist. Insurance is still paying for it as of now in the US. We have no idea regarding the prognosis. Some recover and some don't. And she is very upset that no one believes her delusions. It breaks us. Edit to say, it began out of the blue. No apparent trigger, but after a couple of years of heavy use vaping. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post. Yesterday, things took a turn for the worse. My spouse's paranoia has escalated to a point where it's affecting our daily lives in ways I never imagined. He woke up in the middle of the night, convinced that someone was trying to break into our house. He was pacing around, checking windows and doors, and even went outside with a flashlight. I tried to calm him down, but he was adamant that he heard something. This went on for hours, and neither of us got any sleep. The next morning, he was exhausted but refused to rest. He kept saying he needed to stay alert to protect us. I had to take care of the kids and get them ready for the day, all while trying to manage his erratic behavior. He insisted on following me around the house, questioning every little thing I did. It was suffocating. Later in the day, he decided to go to the police station again. This time, he was more agitated than usual. He accused the officers of not taking him seriously and demanded they do something about the threats he was facing. They tried to calm him down, but he ended up getting into a heated argument with them. They had no choice but to detain him for a few hours to cool off. When he finally came home, he was even more paranoid, convinced that the police were now part of the conspiracy against him. That evening, I tried to talk to him about getting professional help again. He exploded, accusing me of being part of the plot and trying to get rid of him. He said he couldn't trust me anymore and that I was just pretending to care. It broke my heart to hear him say that, but I knew I had to stay strong for our kids. The following day, things got even more intense. He started going through my phone and computer, looking for evidence of my supposed secret communications. He found nothing, of course, but that didn't stop him from accusing me of deleting everything. He was relentless, and I felt like I was walking on eggshells around him. In the afternoon, he decided to take the kids to the park by himself. I was hesitant, but he insisted, saying he needed some time alone with them. I reluctantly agreed, hoping it would help him calm down. When they came back, the kids were visibly upset. They said Daddy had been acting strange, talking to himself and getting angry at random people in the park. I knew then that I couldn't let this continue. I called my mom and asked her to come over. When she arrived, I explained everything that had been happening. She was shocked and immediately offered to take the kids to her place for a few days. I agreed, knowing they needed to be somewhere safe while I figured out what to do next. That night, my spouse confronted me about the kids being gone. He was furious, accusing me of trying to take them away from him. I tried to explain that it was just temporary, but he wouldn't listen. He started throwing things around the house, breaking anything he could get his hands on. I was terrified and didn't know what to do. In a moment of desperation, I called the police. They arrived quickly and managed to calm him down enough to take him to the hospital for a psychiatric evaluation. I felt a mix of relief and guilt as they took him away. I knew it was the right thing to do, but it still hurt to see him like that. The next day, I went to visit him at the hospital. The doctors told me they were still evaluating his condition and that it would take some time to determine the best course of action. I sat with him for a while, trying to talk to him, but he was distant and unresponsive. It was like he was a completely different person. As I left the hospital, I couldn't help but think about how we got to this point. I remembered the early days of our relationship when everything was so different. He was kind, loving, and attentive. We used to spend hours talking about our dreams and plans for the future. But somewhere along the way, things changed. I don't know if it was the stress of work, the pressures of parenthood, or something else entirely, but the person I fell in love with seemed to disappear. I thought back to a conversation we had a few years ago, before all of this started. He had mentioned feeling overwhelmed and stressed, but I didn't realize how serious it was at the time. I wish I had paid more attention. Maybe then things wouldn't have gotten this bad. Now I'm left to pick up the pieces and figure out how to move forward. I know I need to be strong for our kids, but it's hard when I feel so lost and alone. My mom has been a huge help, but I can't rely on her forever. I need to find a way to support my family and get my spouse the help he needs. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that I can't keep living like this. I need to make some tough decisions, and I just hope that whatever happens, it's for the best. Thank you for reading. Am I the idiot for confronting my girlfriend after she paid for everyone's meal except mine? Because her mom said so. So my girlfriend invited me and 4 other people, her mom, her best friend, and her uncle and aunt, to a burger and steak place. My girlfriend and I have already been there once. It's a really great place. The burgers there are slightly more expensive than usual, but the quality is so good that most people wouldn't mind paying a bit extra for a burger. I'm talking about €16.22 for a burger with small fries on the side. We all had a great time together, but when it was time to pay, my girlfriend told the waiter that she would pay for everyone except for me. She then leans a bit to me and says, "Sorry, but her mom and her, are not so rich." The total bill was about €300, and my share was €30. At first, she also said she wouldn't pay for her best friend. But her best friend then told my girlfriend something like, "You forgot about X." I couldn't really hear it, but it was probably an open debt for something. I would definitely be really sad if I didn't hear that, and she intended to really pay for everyone except for me. It's been bugging me. I tried to find the chat where my girlfriend invites me, but couldn't find it because I wanted to make sure that I didn't misread it. I remembered it as her saying that she has invited all the others and would be happy to have me there as well, and that it would be on her. It's not about the money. We don't split bills or anything like that. When we're out together, I usually pay for everything, and I don't mind. When we first met, she was about to finish school, and started her first real full-time job around 4 months ago. For me, it was more like, hey, she's inviting me. How nice of her. And then at the end, when she told the waiter that I would pay for myself, it just sucked or took away the kindness out of the invitation, if that makes sense. I'm planning on at least talking about it, but I'm not sure if I'm making it bigger than it is or not. Advice would be really appreciated here. To add, the restaurant is medieval themed. Her uncle and aunt are huge medieval fans. She invited them because her uncle installed a new stove for them. That's why she invited the uncle and aunt. There wasn't really a reason to invite her mother other than, of course, that she is her mother, and her uncle and aunt are also present. And I think she wanted to invite her mom because, well, she has her first real job and wanted to show how much of an adult she is. Her best friend is also a big medieval fan, but she would have been there anyways. Now for an update, because there are some questions that keep popping up, and to give you some more context. When my girlfriend invited me, it sounded like she would pay for everyone. As I mentioned, I tried to find the chat just to be sure I didn't misinterpret her, but couldn't find it. It also sounded like she is paying for her best friend. And it surprised me when she told the waiter first that she wouldn't pay for her best friend and me. Her best friend then told her, "You forgot about X, debt for something." And my girlfriend was like, "Oh yeah, I will pay for everyone except him, me." I commented that I make around 2.5 times as much as my girlfriend. That's true, but not because I swim in money. It is because my girlfriend has a minimum wage job. I make a decent amount, but I'm not in a position to throw it out the window or something like that. When I say that my girlfriend is in a financially tight spot, I mean it in a relative way. When my girlfriend invited me and told me how excited she was, she also told me that she is expecting it to end up as a big bill. She thought the total would be around 400 to 500 euro. She used to be a waiter for a really expensive restaurant, so she compared it to that. While I'm not sure how much she has in her bank account, she chose to invite her close family and me to a restaurant and thought that the bill would be higher than it actually was. Everyone was modest and didn't overorder, except for her mom. Her mom ordered a 700 G T-bone, which was probably around 80-90 euro. That did skyrocket the bill. The thing is, in the menu, it said that a T-bone is 12 euro per 100 G. And my girlfriend told her mom that they needed to ask the waiter about the size. He told them they only had a 700 G and 800 G option. I couldn't see my girlfriend's reaction when her mom ordered, but it didn't sound like she was trying to convince her mom to order something else. I got mad at her mom for ordering it, but I couldn't find any negative reaction from my girlfriend's side, so I didn't say anything. And again, it's not about the money. I'm also not planning to say or demand that we will split the bill in the future. Imagine someone is inviting you to their party, you show up, and the person tells you that you're not invited. That's a bit exaggerated, but it goes in the direction of my feelings. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. So it's not she paid for everyone except me, it's that she paid for her family. But she happened to owe her friend from a previous occasion, so she covered her friend's meal to make up that debt. I mean, bring it up if you want, but if you can't find the chat and back up what you remember her saying in her invite, you're not going to look great here. I'd be nonplussed if I just spent 300 euros on a meal, and my girlfriend came up to me about that. Comment 2. You say elsewhere that you make 5 times what she makes. It sounds to me like she wanted to treat the aunt/uncle who did a favor for her. But maybe she miscalculated what the entire group bill might be and embarrassingly found herself short. You can make a big deal out of it if you want, but maybe just date someone in your same income bracket if this is an issue for you. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. So, after that dinner, I decided to talk to my girlfriend about what happened. I brought it up casually one evening when we were watching TV. I told her that I felt a bit left out when she paid for everyone except me. She looked surprised and said she didn't realize it would bother me that much. She explained that she thought I wouldn't mind because I usually pay for us when we go out. I told her that it wasn't about the money, but more about the gesture. She apologized and said she didn't mean to make me feel that way. I felt a bit better after that, but things took a turn a few days later. A few days after our talk, I got a call from her best friend. She wanted to meet up for coffee and chat. I thought it was a bit odd, but I agreed. When we met, she seemed a bit nervous. She told me that she felt bad about what happened at the dinner and wanted to explain something. She said that my girlfriend had actually planned to pay for everyone, including me, but her mom insisted that I should pay for myself. Apparently, her mom thinks that since I make more money, I should contribute more. This was a shock to me, like I didn't know her mom felt that way. It made me wonder if my girlfriend was influenced by her mom's opinion. I decided to confront my girlfriend about this. I asked her if it was true that her mom told her not to pay for me. She hesitated and then admitted that her mom did say that. She said she didn't want to argue with her mom in front of everyone, so she went along with it. This made me feel even worse. I told her that she should have stood up for me. She apologized again and said she didn't want to cause a scene. I understood her point, but it still hurt. The next day, I got a call from my girlfriend's uncle. He wanted to thank me for being understanding about the dinner situation. He said he knew it was awkward and appreciated that I didn't make a big deal out of it. This made me realize that everyone knew about the situation except me. I felt embarrassed and a bit betrayed. I decided to take a step back and think about everything. While I was processing all this, I remembered something from a few months ago. My girlfriend and I were at her mom's house for dinner. Her mom made a comment about how I should be taking care of my girlfriend financially since I make more money. At the time, I brushed it off as a joke, but now it seemed like it was more serious. I started to wonder if her mom had been influencing my girlfriend's decisions all along. I decided to talk to my girlfriend about this. I told her that I felt like her mom was trying to control our relationship. She got defensive and said that her mom was just looking out for her. I told her that I understood that, but it felt like her mom didn't respect me. She said she didn't see it that way and that I was overreacting. This led to a big argument. We both said things we didn't mean, and it ended with her storming out of the apartment. The next few days were tough. We didn't talk much, and when we did, it was tense. I started to question our relationship. I wondered if we were really compatible or if her mom's influence would always be a problem. I decided to take some time to think about what I wanted. During this time, I remembered a conversation I had with my girlfriend's best friend a while back. She mentioned that my girlfriend had always struggled with standing up to her mom. She said that her mom was very controlling, and that my girlfriend often went along with what she said to avoid conflict. This made me realize that my girlfriend's behavior wasn't entirely her fault. She was trying to navigate a difficult relationship with her mom. I decided to give my girlfriend another chance. I called her and asked if we could talk. We met up and had a long conversation about everything. I told her that I understood her situation with her mom, but that we needed to set boundaries. She agreed and said she would try to stand up to her mom more. We both apologized for the things we said during our argument and decided to work on our relationship. Things have been better since then. We've been communicating more and trying to be more understanding of each other's feelings. My girlfriend has been making an effort to stand up to her mom, and I've been trying to be more patient. It's not perfect, but we're making progress. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for refusing to go on another trip with my boyfriend after he humiliated me while drunk? My boyfriend makes significantly more than me and loves to travel. He has taken me on a few amazing trips since we started dating, which I have always been incredibly grateful for. I have sometimes covered my own flight and treated us to a few meals or shows outings on these trips. But for the most part, he covers a majority of the expenses on these trips because I don't earn a lot. I never ask him to take me on them. He will usually plan them spontaneously or surprise me with them. Initially, this was incredibly fun and exciting to me, but the last couple of trips we have taken have left a sour taste in my mouth. A couple of months back, he surprised me with a trip to Austin for the long weekend. We had a great time until the last night where we had been drinking. It seemed in his drunken state, he had picked a fight out of nowhere, and that got spun into how I needed him. I reminded him that I was with him because I wanted him, not because I needed him. He kept making snide comments like, "Oh yeah, it doesn't seem that way to me," and "Look where we are because of me." I am very prideful, so started getting pretty angry back and stormed off to our hotel room. He followed me there and continued with the needing him thing, and that I wouldn't have much without him. I don't make a ton of money, but I do well enough where I can comfortably support myself and my needs. I rebut that I do not need him for a single thing, and he goes, "Oh yeah, Where will you sleep tonight if you don't need me? I was taken back and had to fight everything in me not to leave the hotel and find somewhere else to stay for the night. It was 2 a.m. at this point, and didn't want to risk not finding somewhere and having nowhere to sleep. But I couldn't believe he was holding shelter over my head. We went to sleep, I cried all night, and then the next morning he was incredibly embarrassed and apologetic and blamed the alcohol. We talked for hours about it, and I truly believed he was humiliated for that behavior and forgave him and moved on. Last week he had planned a few days in Las Vegas for us. Again, the trip was incredible, where he planned every last thing, staying in the nicest hotel, going to the best restaurants and shows. I really felt amazing that he went to so much effort to create such a great trip and memory for us. Until the last night. We went to see Rufus Du Sol at Excess Nightclub, who we really enjoy. The night started great. We were definitely drinking a lot. Another couple approached us and wanted to join us and dance and have fun. I am a little more open to meeting new people than him. So I was dancing with the girl and having a laugh while he chatted with the guy. Eventually, I could see he was upset, so I went up to him to ask what's wrong, and he basically confessed I wasn't paying enough attention to him, and he wanted to enjoy the night with just me. That is fair, and I apologized, and we separated from the other couple. But it was too late. Something in him had already snapped. I couldn't calm him down, and he started calling me names, bitch, worry, claiming I must want to sleep with every dude in there. And then started on the needing him thing again. Needless to say, the night was ruined, so I went back to our room and crawled into bed. He came in drunk and slurring and saying, if I don't need him, why was I in that room? I ignored him and tried to sleep, and he kept using his towel to annoyingly hit my feet and telling me to leave and get out. I ignored it for as long as I could and then eventually got up and left. It was 5 a.m. at this point. I am drunk and exhausted, and I sat in the elevator section of our floor and ended up passing out. I woke up a couple of hours later and went back to the room. He let me in and slept it off. Again the next day, he was humiliated and apologized profusely, even cried a little. I dropped it just to finish the trip in peace, but I am left extremely hesitant on ever wanting to go on another trip with him. He is holding them over my head and booking them to prove this need for him, it seems like. Alcohol is fueling these thoughts to come out, but they were obviously already there. Is this a red flag, a definite relationship ender, or is there something he and I can work out here? I love him, and he is amazing in so many other ways. If this is some sort of abandonment trauma that he needs to work through, then I am willing, but I am nervous it is just a negative personality narcissistic trait. Any advice? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I can tell you from experience that this behavior will only continue to rear its ugly head over time more often. Now that he has seen you will forgive and stay, it will just become worse. Now it's blamed on the alcohol, but truly it's an anger issue that he is allowing to show when alcohol is on board, and then using it as an excuse. Please save yourself the time and heartache and move on. Don't allow yourself to be put in vulnerable situations with him anymore. You won't be able to change him. This is who he is, and he is showing you. Listen to him. Comment 2. I'd have dumped him after the first time it happened. I sure as hell would not have given him an opportunity to do it a second time. I don't know about any trauma he might have, but he just sounds like an hurtful alcoholic who needs to believe you can't survive without him so he can stroke his own ego. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me. So a lot has happened since my last update. After our trip to Las Vegas, things were tense between us. We tried to go back to normal, but there was this underlying tension that neither of us could ignore. I was still hurt by his behavior, and he seemed to be walking on eggshells around me, probably afraid of another outburst. We didn't talk about it much, but it was always there, like an unspoken elephant in the room. About 2 weeks after we got back, he surprised me with another trip, this time to New York City. I was hesitant, but decided to give it a shot, hoping things would be different. The first couple of days were great. We visited Central Park, saw a Broadway show, and even had dinner at this fancy rooftop restaurant. It felt like old times, and I started to relax a bit. But then, on the third night, we went to a bar in Brooklyn. We were having a good time, and I thought maybe this trip would be different. But then, out of nowhere, He started making those same snide comments about how I needed him. I tried to brush it off, but it was like a switch flipped in him. He got more aggressive, saying things like, "You wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me," and "You need me more than you think." I couldn't take it anymore. I told him I was done and walked out of the bar. I ended up wandering around Brooklyn for a couple of hours, trying to clear my head. When I finally went back to the hotel, he was there, waiting for me. He apologized again, but this time it felt different. It felt like he was just saying the words, not really meaning them. I told him I needed some space and ended up booking a separate room for the night. The next morning, we had a long talk. I told him how much his behavior was hurting me and that I couldn't keep doing this. He admitted that he had some deep-seated issues about feeling needed and that alcohol seemed to bring out the worst in him. He promised to work on it and even suggested we go to couples therapy. I agreed, but I was still skeptical. We got back home, and true to his word, he booked us a session with a therapist. The first few sessions were eye-opening. The therapist helped us dig into his issues, and it turns out he has some abandonment issues from his childhood. His dad left when he was young, and his mom was always working, so he felt like he had to fend for himself. His fear of being abandoned was manifesting in these outbursts, especially when he was drunk. While this gave me some context, it didn't excuse his behavior. I told him that he needed to work on these issues, not just for our relationship, but for himself. He agreed and started seeing a therapist on his own as well. I could see he was making an effort, but I was still wary. Then, about a week ago, something happened that brought everything to a head. We were at a friend's birthday party, and he had a few drinks. I was on edge, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Sure enough, he started making those comments again. But this time, I didn't let it slide. I called him out in front of everyone, telling him that I was tired of his behavior and that he needed to get his act together. He was shocked, and so were our friends. It was like a wake-up call for him. He apologized right there and then, and we left the party early. When we got home, he broke down, admitting that he was scared of losing me and that he didn't know how to deal with it. I told him that I loved him, but I couldn't keep going through this cycle. He needed to make a real change, or we were done. Since then, he's been making a real effort. He's cut back on drinking and has been going to therapy regularly. We've had some tough conversations, but it feels like we're finally making progress. He's starting to understand that his behavior is not okay and that he needs to deal with his issues in a healthier way. As for me, I'm still cautious. I love him, but I'm not willing to put up with this behavior anymore. I'm giving him a chance to change, but I'm also prepared to walk away if things don't improve. It's been a tough month, but I feel like we're finally on the right track. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.